Let's go. We'll sort out my... You see, your two hosts are rusty. One of them hasn't got the right room and the other one has forgotten completely how to record. So we're out of practice, but okay, we're ready to roll. So welcome everybody to the last agency tribe meeting for the year. So it has been a very big year. Everyone, from what I can gather, has been very busy, had lots of big learnings and big challenges, and Agency Tribe has tried to bring you a bit of support, professional education to all of us who run small digital agencies. The thing is, it's not like there isn't enough information out there. It's almost like there's too much information, and that's why having these meetings and the generosity of our presenters that really brings not just information but real life experiences, knowledge to this group. So we are very, very grateful to not only today's presenters but all the presenters that we've had join us this year. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce to you Jovana Vujnic and her sister Milena. Jovana will be doing the presentation. She runs Bumper Leads and specialises in marketing automation and is an expert in ActiveCampaign. So thank you very much for joining us, and over to you.
Great. Thank you, Ursh. Hi guys, thanks for having me today. Milena is going to be in the background, and I've got the slides. I've got the power today to move the slides across. But if anyone has any questions, I think Ursh mentioned that we would take those questions after, just because there's probably about 30 or 40 slides that I'm going to go through today. And just in case, if you want to remember my name, it's an unusual name, Jovana. I always introduce myself as if somebody says, it sounds like Jovana coffee, and the answer will always be yes. and that's how you can remember the name. I'm originally from Serbia, which is why there is an accent, but I lived in New Zealand. Milena is the same. We lived in New Zealand for about 10 years, and we've lived in Australia for 15 years. And we've actually traveled the world, all over the world. So there's going to be sections of the accents you'll pick up. Oh, you sound like Irish or German, or so. Yes, this is us today. And Bumper Leads is something I founded where 5 years ago, because we used to have an e-commerce business, and people used to ask us, how did you run something and save yourself, only run it for 10 hours a week? And we were able to clear stock easily without hiring people. And so all these things that were happening, all the systems that we put in, we took it for granted, and we realized that there are actually businesses out there that need this solution, which is why we are focusing on just marketing automation. And so I think there's an echo, so it keeps... So the presentation today is what is marketing automation, with a focus on ActiveCampaign, because Ursh and Barry mentioned that you guys all are familiar and you know about ActiveCampaign. And I used to do this presentation with small business owners who, they come across different CRMs and they try to kind of figure out things, and people start off with MailChimp, and, they think marketing automation is essentially a email marketing, software. Marketing automation, in my opinion, is not email marketing. Email marketing, if you can imagine, email marketing is, it's you sending emails for marketing purposes. When it comes to marketing automation, we are looking at using technology to help us execute overall marketing strategy. So the question that we need to ask ourselves when we pick a platform for us or clients is, how much automation do we really need? And if it's just about sending emails, then that's fine. Picking a platform that does that is perfect. When it comes to a platform like ActiveCampaign, that's where I think it's really classified as a marketing automation tool, but it's also dynamic enough to just use it for emails, similar to a MailChimp type of platform. And what I wanted to do is share it with you in this format, because there are, as you can tell, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of CRMs and platforms out there. And I wanted to split it in this context where we have platforms that are just email marketing. And so far, you get to hear MailChimp and I think GetResponse. They're kind of going into this marketing automation space. But there's ultimately still relying on a very limited way of segmentation. They don't have a CRM, for example. And that to me would be more of a classification for marketing automation. So that's why I've put MailChimp and Aweber and GetResponse on the left-hand side, where everything is around sending emails. Where it comes to marketing automation, the top right-hand corner talks about really Infusionsoft, Ontraport, and I put ActiveCampaign there. But Infusionsoft and Ontraport essentially are what I classify all-in-one solutions. You know, they will have everything. They will have the email marketing, they'll have the CRM, they'll have the built-in payment processing, they'll have landing pages. All of that to run, essentially run an online business or run anything online. Now, with ActiveCampaign, they didn't want to go into that, having built-in checkout platforms and landing pages, all this. They actually wanted to be very good at marketing automation, which is about segmentation and being able to open the API to integrate with other tools. Because one of the things that we have to bear in mind when we go with an all-in-one solution, that is very, very, makes our job easy and life easy. But Infusionsoft, for example, will not invest the same amount of money or effort into improving certain product features that you, for your business, might want to do one day. So I think there were times when I had this presentation, Infusionsoft landing pages were pretty ugly. And, people were going on and using their WordPress or, lead pages or you're plugging in different types of lead pages. So really, it really comes down to your preference, what is the business need? And I always think about, picking something that fits the business purpose. And the bottom tier of this chart shows that there are platforms that are really designed just for agencies, such as the Constant Contact, Campaign Monitor, Emma. They make life easy for agencies to on-sell their services like sending newsletters, EDMs type of thing. And on the bottom, we have the enterprise level type where you could say that it's a marketing automation. I mean, HubSpot is amazing. Marketo, it's a very complicated, very ugly, not a very good, like in terms of the features and it's very rigid. But what you're paying for in terms of these platforms is you're paying for really good servers, lightning speed, type of fast speed emails. You're also paying for dedicated account managers, and the cost can really be expensive. So once you sign up for HubSpot free plan and you want to do some of the things that ActiveCampaign does, you're going to have to pay at least $1,000 a month just to keep up with what ActiveCampaign is doing. So really, this is what the landscape looks like. I wanted to mention just Salesforce, for example. Salesforce have identified a need where they're really in the enterprise space, but they do have small businesses that have their CRM, which is a fantastic CRM platform. And what they've done on a global level, they have decided to partner with ActiveCampaign. So ActiveCampaign becomes the marketing solution for a smaller business, whereas Pardot, which is Salesforce cloud solution for marketing automation, becomes the enterprise solution. And a lot of small businesses could not upgrade to the Salesforce Pardot solution because of the cost. It really, really expensive. So hopefully that kind of puts things into perspective when choosing a platform for yourself or your clients. Now, the other structures of platforms, and there are some platforms that are coming to market that are kind of in the middle of this marketing automation, email marketing. So if we look at email marketing, you can segment by list, you can create some custom fields, and most of the automation that happens will be between lists. With MailChimp, you may have to create multiple lists. If a customer buys a product, there could be a list. If a customer downloads or it's a lead magnet, that could be a list. So you have to start automating between these lists. Then there is Drip and ConvertKit, for example. In my opinion, they have this kind of, they're almost targeting the bloggers or the content marketers online, and they want to have some kind of dynamic way of segmentation, such as adding tags and automating using tags. And I think recently MailChimp has just launched their version of using tags to automate. It's still very clunky because their whole platform is a bit, they have to keep up with the, what was built in terms of the infrastructure needs to change. And from a marketing automation platform, as soon as we start to talk about CRMs, we are essentially saying you can do more. You can do exactly that dynamic automation when a customer buys a product. What happens when you deliver the product? Do you want to send customers some messages? Do you not want to send the customer message? Do you just want to track them? So those are the things those are decisions you can make easily with these platforms. Now, this is the reason why marketing automations really, platforms like those exist, like ActiveCampaign, is because not every customer is created equal. My mentor, who used to be the director of education at ActiveCampaign, Chris Davis, had this really great analogy that you're welcome to steal it. But you can see this painter with a paintbrush, and you could buy the most expensive paintbrush in the world, but that's not going to make you a Picasso. You still have to have some strategy. You still have to know what you're doing. And I think when it comes to ActiveCampaign, you really need to have some kind of foundation, some kind of strategy in place, because ActiveCampaign, in my opinion, is like this. It's like a blank canvas. So, you don't know where to start, what to do. What's the first thing we should be doing type of thing. Most people will create a list because they're used to it, and they will just create one automation that delivers a lead magnet or downloadable or something, and then they'll create more lists to segment audiences. So at Bumper Leads, we've identified that really you need some kind of a taxonomy when it comes to tagging, when it comes to creating or segmenting those the leads or customers in your database. And this is our convention here that we use. So with ActiveCampaign, you really essentially just need one master list. You may want to have one customer list, but think of a list as a master level of segmentation, like a high level segmentation. And then if you want to drill down and you want to identify someone as a customer, I would be using really a tag for that. So in this case, we have tags that are big square brackets. It's bold, it stands out, because if you look at ActiveCampaign and you want to filter contacts through ActiveCampaign, you can get those tags mixed up. And when it comes to tags, there is meaning behind this. So for example, status tag is only applied through automations, and it also means that there is something that needs to happen. So if a contact has a status tag, such as they haven't been engaged for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, that means they have a tag, but we have to decide, do we want to create an automation or something to follow up with those leads that haven't been engaged? What do we want to do? So that's what we've identified as a status. A customer tag is just one customer. To us, a definition of a customer is a paid customer, someone who paid money. A behavior tag is someone that we want to track in the database. Have they taken action? What action did they take, and what action did they not take? Have they downloaded your ebook, or have they not downloaded your ebook? You want to be able to segment them. Source means really if you're migrating from another platform into ActiveCampaign, we want to identify where they come from. Product purchase, so you can think about the customer might have 5 or 6 or 10 different products. Well, they'll have one customer tag and they'll have multiple product tags along the names. Solutions, trigger tag. Trigger tag may be a good one because we use trigger tag if you're, for example, integrating your website or using Zapier to pass certain data across. We would use a trigger tag to start an automation and remove the trigger tag at the end of the automation, so that there's no manual type of human error that might happen to trigger an automation that really should happen just when a system talks to the system. So these other tags are really just some custom tags that we've done with certain clients. Forms are another way to segment, segment customers. So we would basically have it in this format. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you look at an ActiveCampaign, your actual name with tags, you're basically supposed to tell a story through the tags. You're supposed to tell, exactly what, for example, Jovana has downloaded, what type of product she's purchased. Is she a customer? Is she in the newsletter? Has she been engaged as a contact? So that's how it stands out really with tags. Now we have some automation examples. And when I look at automations and structures of automations, I really look at something that happens before the purchase, something that happens during the purchase, and after purchase. So if we look at that journey of a customer or a lead that's coming in, we want to know, have they downloaded anything? How did they come into contact? We have automations that I call click listener automations. The whole job of that automation is not to send an email, but it's about listening for behaviors of those leads and subscribers. So then you can really get really funky with your customers. Once they make a purchase, you can start doing upselling, cross-selling. You can really follow up with clients. Now, example of new leads. So this is a very basic, in my opinion, funnel that every tool you can build, regardless of ActiveCampaign, you can build this. This is very straightforward. You'll have traffic coming to your website. You'll have some kind of a incentive offer. Then you'll have a thank you page, which is something that most of the clients that I meet, they miss this as a marketing opportunity. The thank you page, when somebody downloads something, this is a massive opportunity for them to amplify their authority. And so this is usually what platforms like ActiveCampaign or other platforms have, this kind of default pop-up or thing that comes up on the website saying, thank you for subscribing. Well, that's, why would you want to do that? You should send them to a special thank you page if you really care about that, the content and the customer. So this is what a basic one looks like. And when people create that inside ActiveCampaign, this is actually our version of it. It can be a lot simpler. You could create it when somebody joins a list, send them this email. That's one very basic. But what we've discovered is that when somebody downloads an ebook, we want to have two things happen. We want to disable the double opt-in, which I know in some countries we have to have double opt-in. I think in Germany, it's by law, you have to have a double opt-in for email subscribers. This automation is all about using the idea of a double opt-in, confirming the email address of a subscriber, but making sure that they click and download the document that you want to give them before you actually start nurturing them down the track. So it's something that I call a single double opt-in. So we want to get them into the database quickly without friction of a double opt-in. And then we want to send them the information and wait for them to take action. And if they don't take action, they'll get a follow-up email. And they will be then, if they take action in the follow-up email, they'll start to be nurtured. So we just want to be able to use this permission type of based marketing idea where we could, where we'll just ask people, hey, you asked for this. Have you clicked the link? If you haven't, maybe you're not that serious. Maybe it has gone into spam. So you really have to think about that customer and what they're going through. Now, if you had a customer, for example, downloading your ebook, then I would say that there would be in the yes branch because they're a customer, they meet the condition. They don't need to be essentially nurtured in the same way as a new lead is nurtured. So that's the reason why we have this kind of big automation in here, because we're trying to say, hey, have you downloaded this lead magnet before? Are you a customer? If you meet those conditions, here's your ebook. This is what you've requested, and that's where it ends. That's where it stops. If you're new, then we will follow you up and we'll chase you and nurture you, all of that stuff. So it's one of the most, well, let's say, complex automations we would build. And then here is a click listener automation example that two different automations that actually work in tandem. they work together. So this one automation on the left-hand side called Purchase Engagement Monitor, that one is actually integrated. So if you have Shopify or WooCommerce, BigCommerce, there is a deep data integration between ActiveCampaign and these platforms. And this automation's job is only to track purchase number of days when this customer made a purchase. So it's been more than 30 days since they haven't made a purchase. So if it's been more than 30 days, they'll get a purchase 30 plus days. If it's been more than 60 days, they'll get that tag, and it keeps going on. Now, if they do make a purchase at any of these, whatever, day 28, day 38, they will go into the thermostat purchase monitor. And this is basically going to reset, kicks them out of the purchase engagement monitor, removes all the tags, and gives them a tag that's reachable. They're a reachable customer. So therefore, you can start promoting and sending them more automation, more emails. Now, when we build automations, I always think about it in the form of, one function, one automation. What is this? What is the objective of this one automation? One automation is just to track and apply a tag when somebody doesn't do something. And then the other function of the automation in the thermostat example is that once somebody takes the action, remove all the tags. And the beauty of ActiveCampaign is that it allows you to bolt on automations. So instead of building this really large, complex automation, because we have seen people building these big puzzles, really think of it as modular. Because if you get one day a customer comes and says, I want to change this particular thing around my process, you're going to get stuck looking at a puzzle, and it's going to take you quite a long time to figure things out. There are also hygiene automations, example of hygiene automations where it's really just housekeeping, cleaning, cleansing. These types of automations don't necessarily track behaviors of the customers. They pretty much try to file customers in the right categories. So like adding them to a list when somebody subscribes to, when somebody purchases a product, such as in the Shopify case. Which, when it comes to Shopify, they pretty much have some kind of errors, and we have to have an automation that says, have they actually purchased? Because you can become a Shopify customer even if you don't purchase because you've just opted in for a newsletter. It's some crazy thing that maybe a bug or something between the integrations. And then on the right hand side, there's this popular thing when we started last year. I think I was in Romania, and everyone was talking about GDPR and what can we do about GDPR, and there's just been a lot of gray areas. So there's a few automations that we have around GDPR, and this example is just basically assigning people and giving them a tag in terms of, are you actually based in EU? And if you're not based in EU, you don't get a tag. If you are based in EU, you get a tag. And then, we could filter contacts through, we could do something with those EU contacts, we could, treat them a bit differently. So it's really just hygiene automation example there. And then in our business in Bumper Leads, we tend to use ActiveCampaign, not just for customers, but also for our internal processes. We have, built in scoring and the CRM feature tells us exactly when a customer reaches a certain point in the lifetime of dealing with us, they qualify for a gift. And in our case, we actually donate to a charity. So really, we have two automations, one that gets added as a customer. We wait 8 weeks. We assign a project manager. So someone in the team will get a notification from ActiveCampaign and say, hey, go and talk to Joe Smith, or send him an email, or buy some kind of animal check, because we support animals. Go and donate some money in their name. And then what happens once they do, they just add a tag. For example, in this case, Dharamsala dog sponsorship to Joe Smith's profile, and Joe Smith will get the email with all the images and things like that. So you can be very creative when it comes to how you structure your automations. This is an example of once somebody becomes we finish a project and we actually want to put them in a monthly support type of structure. We have two automations that pretty much assign the person who's going to be responsible. So that's on the left-hand side. It's on the right-hand side, and then some other ones that moving them into deals. Are they they're moving from a sales pipeline to a project to delivery pipeline and a monthly support pipeline. Now, this is just a bit about us. I'm not going to talk too much, but all we do really from Bumperlead's perspective is we help clients attract and retain their ideal customers at all stages of the buying process. We don't do design work, we don't do SEO, we don't do Facebook advertising, all the top funnel stuff. We only handle what happens after. How can we improve your conversions? How can we really retain those customers? How can we improve the customer lifetime value for your business? That's where we kind of play in that space. And our strategy is to look at the whole business, because essentially, if we look at marketing automation in isolation, we're just going to deliver this little task. But we can do so much when it comes to marketing automation. From the time a stranger comes into contact with that business to a time where they actually start, maybe exiting the business or having more ongoing type of support. So we need to be able to have this continuous relationship with the customer and being able to be in contact and upselling and cross-selling different products and increasing our average order value and the lifetime value for that customer. So we are a small team. We've actually, there's four of us. We don't want to grow too big. We're probably planning to go to up to 10 people. But essentially, our focus is on strategy and consulting. And Milena, my crazy twin sister, we're actually twins. She's here participating as well. And we are basically responsible for doing the strategy work with our clients. And if you want to, if you think you need help in this space, if you need to have someone to talk to when you do come across an ActiveCampaign type of issue or something like that, feel free to reach out. You can book a meeting directly with myself with this link through bumperleads.com/let's chat. And that's a half an hour chat with, and I'm happy to offer that as part of the group with Ursula and Barry. And be able to solve a problem for you if you're working on something with a client that you need to really solve. There you go. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And I think Ursula will have I guess you have some questions maybe filtering through.
Thank you very, very much. That was awesome and very, very great value. What I normally do at this point is open it up to the floor to see if any people have got specific questions. That's a really great offer, that half-hour chat to help us with any problem that we've got with ourselves within the context of an ActiveCampaign, I should say, or with clients that we might be stuck on something. I know I met Milena here in Adelaide because Milena's in Adelaide and Jovana's in Melbourne. Oh, yes. So Milena runs an ActiveCampaign group here in Adelaide, and she showed me a hygiene automation as well. So the mind boggles with what you can actually do to keep your list nice and clean and engaged, because I guess one of those things is that we don't want lists that are necessarily huge. We want lists that are engaged, and if we pay per person, and we also if people aren't engaging, that actually impacts on our deliverability. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. We definitely seek accounts where people are blasting and always sending emails to a list that's not doing anything. So it may be that only 20% are engaged, but 80% are not engaged. So I would, in that situation, recommend to have automations that track that engagement, and build an automation that actually tracks it in the time frame blocks that you want to. So I would recommend, and most CRMs and email marketing platforms say if somebody is not engaged in about 60 days, we should ideally unsubscribe them or remove them from the database and not send them anything. And most of the time, some intuitive platforms, I believe Infusionsoft, automatically kind of stop sending them after 60 days. Within ActiveCampaign, you really have to think about it and you measure it yourself. what you want to do. So I would say after 90 days, if you create an automation that says, is this goodbye type of automation for a client, on behalf of a client, and then wait 2 weeks and unsubscribe that contact, you're going to stop paying for that subscriber in ActiveCampaign. ActiveCampaign doesn't charge for anyone that's bounced or unsubscribed. So that's something different to, let's say, MailChimp. You will get charged if they sit on multiple lists, because you get contact. They charge you per list per email address. So if it's the same email address on 5 lists, you get counted as 5 contacts.
Can I jump in?
Okay.
Another reason why you should clean your list is because you can improve your open rates. So people who are not engaged are going to impact on your open rates. And this is what Ursh mentioned about email deliverability. When you have really low open rates, email servers can flag your account as spammy. And that's the reason, if you just remove those, as we call it, people who don't open your emails, don't engage with your emails, then, they don't need to be on the list. You don't need to pay for them. So just another benefit of cleaning your list regularly.
Yeah.
Right. I'm wondering if there's any questions from the group.
Is everyone using ActiveCampaign at the moment? I've got a question. Or they're using others?
Using it. I think Scott was using it. I don't know if he's still using it. I'm using it, and I'm learning how to use it with clients as well. Mm-hmm. Any tips on naming conventions for tags and lists? That's a question from Scott.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I would think about the tags. So when behavior tags would be the number 1 tag you should definitely have, and a customer tag to identify someone as a customer, a lead tag, a lead magnet, anything that you think in your mind is a structured, what that is, what the client is doing. So if you can just write down on a napkin, this is what the client is going to do. They're going to purchase this product. They're going to buy this way, that way. You could essentially tag every step the customer takes. That's what I would be doing. So behavior tags is the number 1. You should be able to track that, because you can get really smart and dynamic with the way you segment and present the information, because essentially ActiveCampaign is a database. A website is a database. You can get the databases talking to one another, and you can have the same contact that sits in your ActiveCampaign be greeted on your website with their first name. So because we know something about this customer, there's a really cool plugin. I don't know, this is for WordPress, called Message Write. And Message Write plugin actually picks up all this data and only presents information that Joe Smith, the subscriber, is interested in every time they visit this website.
I think it's called Write Message.
Oh, Write Message. Write Message. Yeah, I need another coffee.
Yeah.
And there was another question. Barbara is asking, can you build the automations with the flowcharts? Yes, you can. Think about the start trigger of how a customer comes in. That would be within ActiveCampaign. You can have multiple ways somebody can come in. You can have multiple ways to start an automation. You can have an automation that starts when somebody opens, when somebody clicks, when somebody visits the website. All of this can be all the same triggers that start one automation. So you can basically copy from the slides and implement it. You just need to know the reason or the logic behind why that automation exists.
Can I just also say, Jovana, we don't normally start automations with lists, like when a contact is added to the list.
Yes,
because you haven't covered that one. Just saying it out loud. We normally like to start automations with tags and forms, or when contact clicks on something. As you
actually, yes, that's a really good distinction, because that and something else which you might want to comment on that I saw Milena do when you were showing me the hygiene automations is that you, for actually emailing and communication, you don't, I mean, campaigns aren't your primary mode of communication. Is that correct?
Right. This is because we are special. We just we like to send out newsletters using automation feature inside ActiveCampaign, not the campaign feature. So if you, I don't know if Jovana, you can show the ActiveCampaign, but inside ActiveCampaign you have the campaign feature to send out, you know, newsletters. It's very user friendly, so it's like it's got a really nice user interface. It looks like you know, like a editor, you know, word editor or something like that. It looks like MailChimp when you go and create a newsletter inside a MailChimp. So that is the campaign feature of ActiveCampaign. But what it does is it just sends out a newsletter once. But what we like to do is use automation. For example, we would create a newsletter inside the automation, like create a new email, and then resend the email to people who haven't opened that first email. So we kind of have a wait period. So send one email, wait period 3 days. Has this person interacted with the email? Have they clicked, opened it? If not, then we send another kind of friendly reminder. Hey, in case you missed this newsletter, this is what we covered. So we are constantly trying to engage with people. So we had a meeting with a client yesterday where she's shown us that she uses the campaign feature, and we noticed that people actually, there's a revenue spike when people engage with the newsletter. But what she's not doing is sending a reminder to those who haven't opened the first newsletter. And just by adding that reminder, she can actually increase her revenue because, you know, she can capture the ones that haven't interacted the first time because they were busy, distracted. You know, people don't read emails when they receive them straight away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Milena.
Any more questions?
Yes, I'm wondering, are there any more questions? You need to speak now or your opportunity will be gone.
Are you going to be sharing the slides with everyone, Ursh?
If you're happy for us to share them, absolutely. That would be awesome because, yeah, it would be really good to be able to zoom in on those automations as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Kristen has said, do you have any tips for helping increase double opt-ins? For Canada, for example, it's mandatory to do.
Oh, in Canada. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, to increase your opt-ins with the double, so you have to have a double opt-in switched on. Well, that really depends on the customer that you're working with. Who is the ideal customer? What type of lead magnets is really relevant? So it's really changing that, you know, design or ebook or something that is more going to attract somebody opting in and really become a desirable incentive to download.
Is it possible to customize the double opt-in message itself to be a bit more attractive than...
Yeah, you can, yes. Yeah, there is a function in ActiveCampaign to do it, yes. But yeah, it's the behavior of the contact that's coming to your site that is downloading. They have to be conditioned to go and check. So as you can customize that landing page, go and, you know, double confirm your email address type of thing, because they will be asked to do that. So you could customize that, and you could customize the email. So you can create it as a marketing opportunity.
But also within emails, like if you send out newsletters, if you send something on a regular basis, you can put like a small print, well, not small print, but a side note at the bottom in the footer of the email, or as a PS line. You can say, you know, from time to time we send newsletters. If you don't want to receive these newsletters anymore, click here to be removed from notifications. And what it does when they click on it, it removes the tag, newsletter tag. So they are sure not to receive any more newsletters. So that's one way, I guess, to manage, some people might be fed up receiving emails and, they still want to be on your list, but they don't want to be contacted every week, for example. So you can manage.
That was something that you showed me, Milena, what you do with getting them to select what they're subscribed to. So there are, it's something that you set up manually, but you set up different lists and you say, well, what is it that you are actually interested in receiving information from me
the
about?
Unsubscribe, yes, the unsubscribe.
Manage preferences, yes. Yeah, it's a bit of setting up, but definitely we have had instances where we've rescued people that were, let's say a launch sequence, but they really weren't interested in a particular product. So when they hit unsubscribe, what happens, that's a good point you raised within ActiveCampaign, if somebody unsubscribes through an automation, they will unsubscribe from all the lists that you have. It's like a global unsubscribe. So the only way to bring them back is to have them land on a page that you can customize on your website and redirect the URL. And then tell them, hey, sorry to see you go, but here's a form you created. Here's, are you really interested in hearing about this? Because here's an opportunity to resubscribe again. And if they tick yes, no, you can autofill their email address. And the only way they can automatically resubscribe is through a form in ActiveCampaign. And that form is your unsubscribe form that you create in ActiveCampaign, and they come back into the database refresh again with a tag, hopefully a tag you have, because there is another automation you have to have, and assigns a tag as to what they've actually selected. And then the other unsubscribe, if you use campaign feature of ActiveCampaign and you send it to one particular list and they unsubscribe, they will unsubscribe from that particular list that they were, that campaign was assigned to. That's the difference.
See, I didn't know that. So if they unsubscribe from an automation, they unsubscribe from all lists.
Yes.
If they unsubscribe from a campaign that's going to a list, they're only unsubscribed from that list if you've got multiple lists.
Yes.
But my understanding also in terms of the way ActiveCampaign best practice is that you do generally have a minimal amount of lists, like 1 or 2, and use tags for everything else. And
yes.
I think that's a bit of a distinction to how some of the other platforms work. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's it. And there are platforms that actually don't have lists, like Ontraport, for example, or Klaviyo, if you use Klaviyo. It's only segments. They call them segments, which is a database term, I guess. But you would segment, and you'll have custom fields, you'll have tags, but you wouldn't have something called a list, which I think was started off with MailChimp days and email marketing days in the 90s.
Yeah, so this is much more advanced, and it's much more based on behaviors and preferences and all sorts of things.
And the future, I guess, in the trend of all these platforms and even ActiveCampaign and where they're all going is towards this AI concept, where they're even trying to automate the fact that you don't manually do anything. You don't create an automation. When is the best time to send an email? This robot thing or the tool itself will decide what to do with a contact that doesn't take any action. So they might, the tool might create an automation and in future and send automatically something that you've just maybe created in the past. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's going towards.
You'll be out of a job.
Yeah.
It'll be doing all the automations for you.
I think we'll have more work because that's going to be even more confusing, because the more options you have, the more ways of doing things, you just get so overwhelmed. That's
it's true. It's very true. And that's why I really like the fact that in ActiveCampaign you can do modular automations rather than one big one, because sometimes, the depth of an automation can be so complex that you don't know where someone ends up with your communications, and it may be completely inappropriate. I've got another question here from Alexandra. Can a strategy be set up to nurture donations for a non-profit? Have you any thoughts about that?
To nurture donations. We work with a charity now. There are different plugins to integrate in ActiveCampaign, but essentially you need to, obviously, ActiveCampaign needs to know that the donation was made, you know, and you need to assign a tag to that individual that donation is made, and then you could trigger an automation and track or you know, ask them again for nurturing. We have a client that I've shared with you, our charity, animal charity, Dharamsala. They're based in India. They actually, founder is from New York, and you know, she traveled the world and she started this animal charity in India. And one of the key things that people ask her is, you know, how do I sponsor a dog in India? So that became a lead magnet for her. And every time somebody downloads that lead magnet, they can get nurtured. And every time you email them, the call to action is to ask for sponsorship. And that's how
I guess that's the other...
Sorry, yes.
I was going to say that I guess that's the other part of the whole equation. So the automations and the setup are, I guess, the mechanics and the brains behind what you're doing, like the logic.
Yes.
But a big part of the success, of course, is the messaging and the marketing.
Yes.
And that's where the creativity and knowing your target market and all of that come into it, because
yes.
You know, you can have the best automation in the world. If your message isn't hitting the mark, then it's all for nothing.
It's exactly, that's why the definition of what I call marketing automation is using technology to help us execute a marketing strategy. And I would say 80% of our work, maybe even more, is around this strategy. Like, what do I use as a lead magnet, and what type of messaging, and all of that stuff. And then because we have the logic brain and process brain and system structure brain, we could then implement that inside a tool like ActiveCampaign. So that is technical side is almost like, I would say, dare I say, easy compared to the strategy side.
Easy for some.
Oh, it became easy over time.
Yeah, it's like building a website, creating a website.
Yeah. I really admire you guys for creating a website.
Okay, any other question, people? We have about 9 more minutes left. If you've got any questions.
I have a quick question. How do you work with separate lists in order to maintain lists for specific campaigns or specific product lines, but obviously you still want those people on the master list?
Mm-hmm. What lists are we talking about? Like customer lists?
Well, if you have a high value download or something for an email list for a specific set of products or services that you offer, and then you have a different email list for a different, because you have different campaigns and different setups for people coming from different places for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually suggest amalgamating them all so you also have a master list that you can also address?
Yeah. So within ActiveCampaign, you definitely have to have a master list where everyone's housed. But I guess the list in my mind is like where people live. So they could live in this master list. I would recommend not to create lists based on this product, or I would probably say if you're selling a webinar as an information product, maybe you'll need a separate list for that, webinar list. I would not be creating an ebook list for someone who downloaded a lead magnet. That's where I would say they belong into master list with the lead magnet tag that they downloaded this lead magnet. Does that make sense?
So you instead of putting them in separate lists, you just have separate tags for
yeah, exactly,
each place they come from.
Yeah, because if I go back to the slide.
Sorry, I missed the first bit.
Oh, so. This one. So yeah, if we do that, you'll see that my example is the tags are supposed to tell a story, because you might have multiple lead magnets or multiple books that you want people to subscribe to. We want to be able to tell easily what this contact is doing, what they've downloaded, what product they've purchased, are they a customer, are they interested in getting a newsletter from us, have they been engaged. All of that will sit on the customer record, and really you don't need lists to segment audiences, unlike the tools like MailChimp or Aweber or other tools where you have to create lists in order to, and they offer tags, but it doesn't work in the same way as ActiveCampaign does.
And when you go in ActiveCampaign, Milena showed me this as well. I learned so much. So when you click on contacts in your ActiveCampaign, where you list all your contacts, you can actually get it to display in the list view what all the tags are attached to each contact, just like, for example, next to their email address.
Yes.
So, as you were saying, it actually tells you a whole story, because rather than having, separate people in separate lists, it kind of gives you a holistic overview of that client, their interests, their behavior, everything.
Yes.
Yeah, it's well, as you mentioned before, it's like a database segmentation as opposed to a union of individual lists.
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm. And that's the segmentation we would use, is these types of tags to describe a story, and one list really. In our business, we personally have master lists. I have a customer list because I like to have my customers living in. I like to see that as a separate. So if I think about who my customers are, and if I, let's say, have suppliers, if I'm selling a product, I would have a supplier list for that, and think about that type of communication for that avatar or for that client. If that is so different to the rest of your database, like a supplier versus a customer, then I would have a supplier list. We also have HR lists, like an employee list. So we manage our employee communications as well inside ActiveCampaign.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So if it's very distinct groups, then you'd use different lists. But otherwise, if they're in the category of any kind of lead or prospect, that would be, I'm guessing, the master list.
Yep. That's it.
Do we have any other questions? That was a good one. Well, I think I'd like to, on behalf of everybody here, thank you very much for being here for your presentation. It's really good to get real in-depth information from someone who uses a product every single day, rather than just trying to learn something and work through, how am I supposed to use this? What's the best way of using it? I would encourage anyone who has been here or who's listening to this on the replay to take Jovana up on the Let's Chat, because the amount of information you've got through your experience is quite extraordinary.
Thank you.
Any other final points? Barry and I would like to thank everybody for joining us this year. It's been a very busy year. If you come across anyone that you feel is an expert that would be willing to present to Agency Tribe, we thought we'd just do it on the moment kind of thing. If we find someone that is really good, that has information that is relevant to our group, it would be great if you could approach them or put us in touch. And that's how we all continue to learn and grow.
Thank you, Ursh and Barry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And now all I have to work out how to do is to stop the recording and get control back of being a host.